Hey everybody, Marshall here to share some really cool news with you. I trust at this point you've all heard about fake yeast. This is that Norwegian ale strain that can ferment cleanly at temperatures as high as, no joke, 100 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 38 degrees Celsius. Absolutely crazy stuff. Well, last year, Imperial Yeast dropped A43 Loki, their Kvake strain, as a seasonal release, which meant we all had a pretty small window to get our hands on some. Not anymore. Imperial Yeast recently announced they're making A43 Loki a year-round strain due to popular demand. They're excited about it. I'm super excited about it. I've had some amazing beers fermented with Loki at terrifyingly warm temperatures. It is amazing stuff. Go grab some A43 Loki and see what all the fuss is about for yourself. Hey everybody, you're listening to the Brülosophy Podcast, coming at you live again from Yakima Valley Hops in beautiful Yakima, Washington, where the hops you'll be using in the coming year are currently being harvested. This is our 110th episode, meaning it's time for another Brü A. We typically do these things every 10th episode. Of course, our 100th episode was kind of a celebration where we sat and partied with friends in the studio. We didn't get around to answering any questions, so we're going to do that on this episode, though, because we are in hop harvest with a bunch of friends. We are going to have some fun on this episode as well. We've got a table that seems to be getting fuller and fuller of open bottles of beer. We're just going to keep that going. There are a bunch of people sitting around the table right now, so I figured we'd start off by going around and doing a round-robin introduction.
It's Brian again, Brülosophy contributor.
Scott Casey, I'm International Sales Manager for Brü and Son Hops out of Yakima, Washington.
Nate Cooper, owner, brewmaster of Wandering Hop Brewery in Yakima, Washington.
It's Jake from Brülosophy, and I am missing something, half my voice. We had too much fun at karaoke last night.
Jake dominated
We
karaoke.
don't karaoke, do we?
Jeff Perkins, one of the owners of Yakima Valley Hops and also Hop Slinger.
Hop
Taylor
Slinger?
Truckee, Yakima Valley Hops, late edition.
Awesome. Thank you guys for letting us have your space to record all of these episodes and to have some fun doing this, and for joining us on the show. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We do have a ton of questions to get to, and if we don't get to a question that you have submitted, I promise we have it logged away somewhere. It's just a matter of having, not taking too much time on this show. So if you want us to answer a question in a future Brü A, you can submit those. We save them for a long time, and then again, every 10th episode we go back and we answer them. We try to get to all of them, and you can ask us whatever the hell you want. We'll answer anything, whether it's about personal stuff or brewing. Scott's been asking personal questions.
Whether it's about,
sucking on chili dog.
Sucking on possibly the end of Indiana Jones, Rise of the Lost Ark.
That's right. We can talk exactly. Ask us whatever you like about movies. So
What about
anyways.
marsupials?
Marsupials.
You can ask about marsupials too. Yeah.
Cloaca.
Yeah. Scott is you're Scottish, right? That's
Yes.
where you get your
Yes,
name.
I'm definitely Scottish. Yeah, I'm from a very small, isolated region of Scotland. No. Yeah, I'm Australian, but I work for Brü and I'm based in Kentucky. So, yeah. Welcome to that nightmare.
Yeah, cultured. All right, if you enjoy this show and you'd like to make sure that it sticks around for a while, please consider becoming a patron of Brülosophy over at patreon.com/Brülosophy, where in return for making a small monthly pledge, you'll receive rewards like access to unpublished recipes, unique discounts, Yakima Valley Hops, and an invite to a monthly live Q&A session with someone in the brewing world. Folks like John Palmer, Gordon Strong, Vinny Chilurzo, and so many more have been on. All of those sessions are available on our private Facebook page for patrons to watch whenever they want. Learn more about becoming a patron over at patreon.com/Brülosophy. And if you wouldn't mind letting us know what you think about this show by leaving a review and a rating in Apple Podcast or wherever it is you listen to podcasts, we'd really appreciate it. Feedback this week is brought to you by Brewers Hardware, who offer brewers beautiful stainless gear, such as the turnkey BH15 pilot brewing system, which has a hard plumb manifold to eliminate all hosing changes during the brew process. Brewers Hardware has a ton of unique purpose-built products useful to both professionals and home brewers. Go see for yourself at brewershardware.com. And don't forget to mention the Brülosophy podcast at checkout to receive a free gift. That's brewershardware.com. Listener Clive Davis shared some thoughts on our recent Brews Views episode, where we shared our unabashed opinions about big beer. I say that as we sit here drinking Rainier. Would you consider Rainier big beer? I guess.
Shit, yeah.
Yeah, shit, yeah. Okay. So I'll be honest, I expected to get a ton of hate after that episode. Same thing with our first Brews You thing, where we talked about how we manage drinking and brewing with kids and being parents and all that shit. So the response has been mostly positive, though this one people did tend to respond with novellas. I got huge emails from folks not complaining, just giving me their opinion opinion, which we sought. So it's pretty cool. Clive was one of those listeners who I thought made some good points that I wanted to share. He says, your views seem to be based on the premise that you expect listeners to have been raised surrounded by big beer and then one day discover craft beer only to turn their noses up at the big boys. What if this wasn't your upbringing? What if you were constantly surrounded by craft beer and then later found yourself plunked down in the middle of America with its NASCAR, football, Budweiser commercials every 7 minutes and insipid entertainment? I moved to the United States having been raised in Kenya and Germany, trying to graft myself onto the American landscape, as always, has always been difficult for me, and I've never understood the fascination that Americans have for light lager and their overly sexualized commercials. How do you not get that?
I was going to say that version of America, like being plonked down, sounded pretty great to me. I
Is
don't
it-
know what it's like in Kenya and Germany, but it sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, no joke. He says, I always get a chuckle watching The Simpsons whenever there's a Duff reference. I think they hit it right on the head. For me, big beer is not about quality or enjoyability, but about culture. Frankly, it's never a culture I've understood, and I'm more keen on drinking craft beer. I think he makes some pretty good, that's a good point, right? Awesome. Yeah, clearly.
Yeah,
you guys-
yeah.
The endless silence. Let's
really
not
a room
put
full
a
of
foot
people, I
wrong.
swear.
Well, so I mean, Australia, you're raised more with big beer culture first than
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of, that's typically
Yeah.
the case there as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I was raised with like macro beer culture, but my dad was a home brewer as well.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah,
Okay,
like
list. What are the macro beers? Like
In Australia?
Yeah.
What's,
I know
what's
Foster's.
Australian for beer?
Yeah, everyone knows Foster's, but
Australian beer.
there's a bunch of other ones.
As a Queenslander, I would
Yeah.
say 4X first. Isn't
that like a
to
Victoria
the
or
Australians listening? Yes, 4X. So fuck you. Other ones, VB, Tui's, and then Cooper's is like our kind of Sam Adams sort of thing.
Yeah, like big craft or whatever.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
big craft.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting, and I think the cultural argument is a good one because it's true. Like I think for the most part, we grew up watching our dads or our grandpas or our uncles or whatever, cracking open MGD or
and
Budweiser.
Yeah.
And so for us to find craft, it became this novel thing, that we did. And it was cool and it was neat and it was fun to hate on the big guys,
Or rebelling against dad. I'm not drinking your stuff.
Yeah. I'm going to brew better than that stuff. So
I think there's always an anti-establishment phase, right?
Totally.
That everyone goes through. Is like, well, I want to find the counterculture or whatever this mainstream is. So,
yeah.
That said, though, the moment a camping trip is planned, I immediately gravitate towards Busch Light.
Yeah. Oh, you go
That's-
Bush, man? Keystone.
I go Busch.
Solid gold.
Oh, Keystone. God, that's rough. Busch Light's bad. I watched the space shuttle take off and I was drinking Busch Light. Yeah. And one thing was cool and the other thing was not cool at all.
So, spaceship wasn't cool, right?
Yeah.
Spaceship
that's
is
it,
boring,
Joe.
yeah.
Exactly.
Isn't Busch Light just watered down Bud Light and Keystone Light's like watered down Coors Light? That's what I was told.
Back to the Simpsons. Yeah, it's that,
Was that
it's
the
the Duff malt strain,
Simpsons
which
did
is
it.
just like, Duff Light, Duff Dry. And
Duff, that's right, yeah.
Our new latest introduction.
That's funny. Well, I do think also that how big craft beer's gotten right now is influencing the culture, like for our kids and stuff. Even if whether your parents drink or not, but I think craft beer is a much bigger part of the American landscape nowadays than it was. I don't know. 30
Yeah,
years
it'll be really interesting to see what the next generation of kids that kind of grew up with parents who were only drinking craft beer, kind of how their views shape as they get older.
Well, it'll be like what Sam Adams isn't cool anymore, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're the ones pulling commercials out now, or who knows who else. I don't want to drop other names, but Sierra, for example. I don't know the other bigger establishments, the older brands that have been around forever, and now it's like, what is cool? It's like small breweries, brew pubs that are constantly changing their menu up.
Totally.
And it's going to those destinations too, I think, is big. Because my kids are always like, oh yeah, I want to go to the brewery and I want to see all the parts and pieces and stuff like that. So it's drinking it, but it's also the accessibility to kind of this whole makerscape that we have going on right now in our generation.
Yeah.
I just
think
like
it's cool.
the perverse idea of like a bunch of kids like stealing a box of like Founders from their dad to like drink.
Yeah, to
And
crush.
it's like,
yeah.
who are you people?
I know. It's weird. It's weird. My kids they've been immersed in it since they were born, basically. But they also see that I've got Miller Lite sitting in my fridge all the time. It's just.
I don't let my kids see that.
Yeah, you're better than me, Brian. You're better than me. Well, thanks for
that's
the
not-
feedback, Clive. It was really an interesting point. So I appreciate feedback like that. If you have show feedback, you can send it to at brülosophy.com or drop us a line on social media. So speaking of light beers, I got one. I talked about my friend Paul Nicodem, who lives in Sydney. He came to town to hike the John Muir Trail, the JMT, as we call it in California.
GMT, bro.
Yeah, brah. And so when he came to town, we had a barbecue, and he came over. He brought a whole bunch of Australian and New Zealand beers that you can't get here. One of the more fun ones that Garage Project, or as they call it over there, Garage Project, is brewing is just called Beer.
1 minute beer review with Jersey and Tim.
Wow, looks pretty.
That is nice.
Nice, clean, crisp, easy to see. I can see your ugly face through it.
Damn it, you are ugly.
Yep, it looks delicious.
No smell?
No, I smell something.
No, that was me.
I smell some funk in there. It smells all mossy and funky.
That's good too.
Yeah, you like it?
Yeah, that's very good.
I don't like it at all.
Why?
There's an aftertaste. I don't
It does
like.
have a
That was my first impression. Time for second impression.
It's not that much of an aftertaste.
Still don't like it. There's a weird aftertaste. I mean, don't let me skew your unlearned opinion. If you like it, then you like it.
I do
so
like
be
it.
it.
You're getting tough.
It's got a weird, funky.
It's not an aftertaste that like lingers on. It's like right at the end of the sip. It's there and then it goes away.
I'm only noticing this because I'm sober. If I was drunk, this would be delicious.
I don't mind it.
No, I didn't say I didn't mind it, or I didn't say I did mind it. No, it's fine. It's just I like it. I'm just gonna say I like it because I feel like a fool. I don't know what it is, dude.
What are you feeling?
There's just a little.
It's right on as soon as you swallow.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a little bit of a. I'm sure it's like esters and phenols or whatever other evil spirits that are in beer that we don't know anything about. The more I have, the more it's.
I'm already done with it, so I'll go with a 5.
Sure, 5s, 55 Jersey Tims.
So I'm sort of surprised that Jersey didn't like this beer. It's probably because he was sober, as he admitted. I agree with Tim. There was something kind of in the finish, but I get that in a lot of craft lager, especially the ones that kind of go towards the lighter end, the light lagers. There's kind of this interesting aftertaste, this finish that stays on the palate for a while. I'm not sure what it is.
I've noticed that in drinking Natter Days a lot of the time because I get that nice strawberry lemonade up front, but there is that kind of natural light finish to it that just doesn't. That I don't enjoy quite as much.
Especially whenever I finish a nice, beautiful, crisp, Bud Light. Is there something that sits on the palate for a while? And I think it might be alcohol content, perhaps malt liquor, those sort of flavors.
I've never had a Natter Day. I need to try one.
Oh, you gotta have them.
Oh, you should. They're terrible.
Oh, they're bad.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I like White Claw. Nathan, Mr. White Claw.
No,
over here.
they're as good as White Claw.
Yeah.
Well,
they're very popular right now.
I know that I've seen them around.
Yeah.
These
are the
beer,
strawberry ones, right?
Strawberry lemonade. If you like strawberry lemonade and you like drinking beer.
Well, I was mixing them with vodka last week, and so it works quite well.
I was doing that with White Claw last night, actually. Vodka and White Claw.
That's a recipe for disaster.
Dude, it's a recipe for losing memories.
I believe that's Four Loco.
Yeah, basically Four Loco.
There's a punk bar back in Lexington, and they have the Truly Fucked, which is gin and Truly.
Oh my gosh.
And at least Truly uses hops. So everyone out there, please buy Truly because it uses hops.
Does it really
every
use
single
hops?
one,
They put Mandarin Bavaria in there. Huh. Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh, you learn something
every
new
single
every day.
flavor.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know about every single flavor.
That's what I'm saying. It probably is just like one of them.
Well, I mean, if they put one pellet in, it doesn't matter to me. It's like it's one more pellet that's getting used by someone at least.
So let's talk about double dry hopped hard seltzers.
Yeah. So Beer by Garage Project out of New Zealand. I thought it was really good. I actually had it on tap at Garage Project in Wellington. Awesome beer, really awesome brewery. I'm sure you guys get it out in Australia. Well, you don't live there anymore.
No.
But, do they not distribute it over there?
I haven't lived in Australia for 10 years. So
can you go back and give me
I'm allowed to go back.
Well,
okay.
Yeah.
He did live in Germany though. I mean, you can.
I've never seen Garage Project anywhere. I've only heard about it. I've never tried it.
I think they're so popular that they don't have an issue. They don't need to distribute because they're so popular. They've got 2 facilities right down the street from each other in Wellington. One where is the main brewery and like a tap room bar, and then the other one's more your traditional pub.
Yeah, I've heard
place.
A shitload about them, but I've never actually had their stuff because we just have never had the chance to come across it.
Yeah, they're awesome. And this beer, I thought it was really good. Again, I agree. It's got a little bit of an aftertaste. And if you're expecting a Miller Lite, it's way more flavor than that. You'd probably love it, Brian, as somebody. You love solid gold. Yeah. So, well, thank you again, Paul. We've got a bunch more beers from Australia that he brought in that I had the guys review. So really appreciate that. If you would like to have a beer that you made reviewed by Jersey and Tim on the show, you can email me, Marshall at brewlosophy.com, and we'll get you all set up. All right, when we're back from this short break, some friends are going to help us answer your questions. So I've been hanging out with brewers and craft beer nerds for a long time now, and while we do occasionally have our differences, one thing it seems we all share is a love of learning and trying new things, as well as saving a couple of bucks. Well, right now, Craft Beer and Brewing is helping fans of Brülosophy learn more while saving some coin by offering 20% off the price of a subscription to their awesome magazine. Chock full of brewing insights, tips, and recipes from industry experts, Craft Beer and Brewing is seriously great. I read every issue page to page myself. To get 20% off your subscription, all you have to do is sign up at beerandbrewing.com/Brülosophy. Chilling work can be a chore, especially after a long brew day, but not with the Exchillerator Counterflow Chiller, which can chill a 5-gallon or 19-liter batch of wort in 5 minutes or less, leading to a strong cold break and clear wort in the fermenter. Brülosophy's Matt Del Fiacco uses the Exchillerator Max and absolutely loves it. In addition to improved chilling efficiency, every Exchillerator comes with a 5-year warranty that covers the entire chiller for manufacturer defects. If you're looking to up your chilling game and a CFC is right for you, head over to exchillerator.com today. Want to brew quality craft beer at home? The Grainfather provides a brewing system with superior design, innovative features, and the latest technology, allowing you to brew professional quality craft beer at home. Mash, sparge, boil, and cool all in one unit, meaning there's less equipment to use, clean, and store. No need for burners or hot plates. Just plug it in and brew great beer. Then get the best out of your fermentation with the Grainfather conical fermenters and glycol chiller. Plus, enhance your brewing experience with the brand new free-to-use Grainfather community app. You can take your brewing tools and your recipes with you everywhere, use brewing calculators on the fly, manage your recipes, and monitor your brew session from anywhere. Use your mobile device to manage your Grainfather brew wirelessly, automate mash schedules, and multitask without removing any of the brewing hands-on fun. Grainfather products can all be found at www.grainfather.com. Plus, as a Brülosophy podcast listener, get 10% off your order. Just use discount code Brülosophy19 at checkout. That's BRULosophy19 to receive 10% off your order. So head to shop.grainfather.com now to get this great deal. Over the last couple of months, we've received a ton of questions from listeners, some short, some long. We're going to be doing our best to address each question as thoroughly as possible. And seeing as there's a gazillion people in this room, hopefully we can offer multiple perspectives. We just had a couple of, I think, listeners. I think they're friends of Brülosophy show up. And so they may pop in and answer some questions as well. All right, the first question comes from Ian Antons with a question on ethics. He says, what are your thoughts on hop farm? Oh, this is a good one for you, Scott. What are your thoughts on hop farmers changing the names of hop varietals for marketing purposes based upon their location? For example, if a small local hop grower in New York is growing Willamette, he can argue that because they're grown outside of Willamette, the Willamette Valley of Oregon, the terroir of New York changes the profile completely to the point it's no longer classic. But its own thing now. Hops do show terroir. An example of that is U.S. Goldings versus Kent Goldings.
From my job perspective, I don't know about that, but from a logical perspective, it makes a hell of a lot of sense. It's like SARS, for example, is the exact same thing as like Hallertau, Milfrew, and Tettnanger. They're all the same hop, and I think it's something with M that's from grown in Poland. They're literally, if you do a DNA test, they're all the exact same hop. But because they're grown in different regions, they exhibit different characteristics. And I think nothing is wrong with that. It makes perfect sense to say that, I'm going to call my Willamette that I grow in New York State, whatever, call it New York, call it Seinfeld. I don't know. It's the first thing I think of from New York.
Well, and that's happening a lot now with the New Zealand varieties, right? Because they're growing, Saz types in New Zealand, they're growing Cascades in New Zealand, and just renaming them.
Yeah, exactly, and that's sensible because hops. I mean, I've worked in malting barley before, and I know about wine, and it's terroir, and the terroir is a massive thing when it comes to hops because the plant is so sensitive to its climate. And as soon as you move it to a different climate, it'll exhibit totally different characteristics. Look at what happened with Amarillo, bringing that into Germany.
Yeah.
Is a totally different plant in Germany. And the Germans don't know what to use it for. And then you rub it over here and you smell it, and it's it's
citrus.
P&W like citrus.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
That was this came up. I was talking to I think I talked to Perkins about this a while ago, but a local farmer has just started growing hops, Golden State hops, and we were he's calling them all the same thing that when he bought the rhizomes or whatever, and so he's got Cascade and Magnum, and I think Willamette's one of them as well, and Chinook. And I asked him about do you change the name because I brewed some batches for him, and they taste completely different than say the Cascade that are grown up here in Yakima. And I guess before hearing your perspective, I would have said that it's probably unethical to do that because it's deceptive. It seems deceptive.
But if they're public varieties, then it's not
Legally, you don't have to, right? You can change out. You can say whatever name you want to. That's been a case for a couple of varieties.
Exactly. If they're open varieties, then it doesn't matter. It's not false advertising to do that.
Right.
I think it's actually better to rename them because then at least if you're doing it on that small scale, then you can say, okay, this is unique to this region. This is not like what you're thinking of from Yakima or from Oregon or from Idaho.
Yeah.
As a home brewer, it's nice to have kind of the part of the name staying the same, like U.S. Goldings versus Kent Goldings. So you know that it is DNA. There is a match there, but it is nice to know that they were grown in different areas.
Yeah.
So if you called one Willamette and you called one Seinfeld or something like that to a home brewer who's not paying attention super close, they'd go, oh well, these are two totally different things. Whereas
Seinfeld
if you said
Willamette.
If you had Willamette versus the Seinfeld Willamette, you kind of know that at least it started out similar.
I would call if I grew Willamette in New York, I'd call him Willamette.
Will hyphen.
There's a joke somewhere there.
Yeah. I hear so many homebrewers call him Willamette all the time.
Oh yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
we're not even drinking that much yet.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Oh, I thought you were making a movie reference or something.
That's what I thought.
No, yeah, you're right. It's Willamette or Natchez instead of Natchez.
Chinook.
It's always the native terms that always get mispronounced. But I will say that I've been noticing, for Michigan, for example, they're saying, hey, this is Michigan grown Chinook. There is a marketing thing going on right now with that.
Yeah.
They should also stop growing hops in Michigan.
It would be frustrating though if you have two different people calling it the exact same thing and it tastes two different ways. That's where I think it would be.
That's where
deceptive.
I'm thinking from a commercial standpoint.
Yeah.
If I was in a pinch and just had the spot hops and Mosaic, and I end up getting Michigan Mosaic, and it's night and day difference, and now our 369s.
Exactly, and that's the issue that I was talking with Grant from Golden State Hops about is if the characteristics of that hop is so different that it doesn't match the descriptions of the variety that already exist, I feel like the right thing to do is delineate it, is to make it different, and whether that means calling it Cali Cascade or something, even that's enough. But just if you're just trying to sell it as Cascade and it doesn't taste like that sucks for the person who's buying those hops. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem with the hop industry is that quite often the lineage of where the hops had come from is not very clear.
Yeah,
and so brewers can't really work out. If you haven't been in an industry for a while, you wouldn't even know all that about SARS, that it's all basically the same thing from Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
And so, is that maybe we need to be better at doing that, especially when people want to start growing it somewhere else in a non-traditional region. And
we've been fortunate enough that some of the hop bags we have in our walk-in, it straight says Colorado Cascade or Michigan Centennial. And we've gotten some of those from Haas, and they're clearly labeled, so you're not getting a surprise in the bag, which is nice.
Nikolai, who's the hop geneticist at Hopsteiner, actually touched upon a lot of the same topic right here in our podcast, and he was saying Cascades definitely. I mean, he's reaffirming everything that you guys are talking about right now.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I didn't realize we were going to go so deep on it. But ethically, it's not unethical. To answer his question as simply as possible, it's not an unethical thing to do that. It sounds like it's already being done.
I'll bring up one more example, actually. Simcoe is actually coming off patent this year. Right. So they still own the trademark for the name, right? Correct? So there has been another entity that has got a trademark for Sameco.
Careful,
right?
Perkins.
Yeah, but it's interesting because you put it on the table. If you can't use the name, how do you say hey, it's very similar to this, but you can't use the name? You know what I mean? Even though it came off the patent.
The name's tramarked.
The name's trademarked, but it's still trademarked.
Genetics are no longer trademarked.
So it's kind of sticky. That's going to be in a very interesting case when it comes to when it actually hits the market.
Yeah.
So you don't think that there's been, because this is something that I've thought about too, and we're kind of spinning off of the original question. It wouldn't be difficult to find yourself a Mosaic or a Simcoe rhizome and grow it up. That wouldn't be tough for somebody to do, right?
You can't. No way.
No comment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They own.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm saying illegally.
Illegally.
It wouldn't be hard to find that and then to call it something different. And unless there's, see, I do.
No one should be digging up. That's highly illegal to be doing anything like that. I would not dig up any rhizomes. There's a lot of ramifications that can happen for doing that.
Mapping they've got.
I'm not suggesting people do that. What I'm saying is
they take it very seriously. Yeah.
From a devil's advocate
exactly.
Yes, it is very, very easy to do if, from a devil's advocate perspective, you wanted to do that.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do that. No one should do that. That is a bad idea.
I just can't imagine that
don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I can't imagine it hasn't already happened and somebody is calling it something different. That's what I'm trying to say.
It's never happened.
Okay.
Ever.
Yeah. Everybody's
At
so
all.
fucking ethical in the hop industry.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, it's. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's happened. Honestly, I honestly don't think that's happened.
It's never happened.
Because they've mapped. Yeah, they've mapped the genome. They can figure out.
Yeah, I see that.
You see what I'm saying? There could be slight variations
off.
for phenotypes or whatever, but they're gonna know. Hey, they would have a strong case in courts going. Hey, this is pretty much 90% of this genetic material is the same as where you're going.
Well, look at CTZ. Columbus Tomahawk Zeus that was sold as unique varieties, but it was essentially all the same thing. So that's kind of the reverse.
Exactly, yeah. And I get a lot of confused customers who are like, I want to have Columbus. And I'm like, well, we only sell CTZ. And they're like, what? And I'm like, nah, it's all kind of the same.
It's in the name.
That was a mess. That's a whole different story for your whole different podcast. But it was a whole
different podcast,
right?
What, for your company's podcast?
He's the back end producer.
Something we could do a little bit later.
No. I mean, we could try. I mean, we could go through the whole story. We don't want to get too sidetracked because it's so long. But
we'll be here all night.
Yeah.
The CTZ story?
Yeah, but
it was so long. I know.
Yeah, but what it did do is force everyone in the hop industry to come together and let's not make sure this doesn't happen again. So I think that's where this all is a root.
Oh my God, it unified the hop industry?
It's a root.
I don't think it did.
No, but it unified a better direction for...
Fair.
Yeah.
Okay, question 2. I enjoy brewing a good Mexican chocolate stout using cacao nibs and generally add them post-fermentation. I got to thinking, could I include the nibs in the mash process instead to pull in more chocolate flavors? Have you done or heard of this being done? Any concerns? I don't think I would mill the nibs as they come pre-crushed split already.
That comes from Tim Wood, by the way. So thanks for the question, Tim Wood. I've used cacao nibs a total of 1 time.
Same.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and anytime I use them, I generally make tinctures and then dose it in the keg. So no, I've never done that. I don't know if anybody else has done it.
We did Ghirardelli cacao powder in the last 5 minutes of boil and cacao nibs in the fermenter. I mean, just for that extra chocolatey kick. But
do you toast your nibs?
We don't.
That's not the kind of podcast.
Super lazy.
All the guys in here are laughing.
Hey, bro, do you even toast?
No, I will say I did learn because we had a competition where the side challenge was chocolate, and so everybody was doing these different things with chocolate. And my buddy was snickering the entire time as we're tasting all these beers because he watched me do all my stuff, and we were very competitive. So he watched me, and he's like, he knew I didn't toast the nibs, and apparently it's a totally different flavor, and it's much more chocolatey as opposed to just kind of like this whole chocolate flavor.
I was told that some nibs, particularly the ones that are sold to homebrewers, I thought they came lightly toasted.
Oh, I just got mine on Amazon.
That they're not wet. Yeah, that's what I'm, because you can buy the nibs, you can buy them at Trader Joe's.
Right. Yeah.
But I think the ones that are sold for brewing are a little bit drier. They're not that kind of wet thing. I was just saying
that's the only experience I have. So
yeah,
that's the only thing I would say is toast your nibs.
Kind of back to this question, any concerns that I would think maybe the boil process. If they're boiled for 60 minutes, that could extract something undesirable.
Well, if you're doing it in the mash, I would think that putting them in a fermenter would get you a lot more flavor than a mash.
Yeah. So would I. I mean, but arguably, if your wort going into the kettle is more chocolatey, you're gonna have more, even if it's not that much. I would just try it. This is one of those things I've never even considered doing this. I'm not a big fan of chocolate flavored beer. But easy enough to try out. I would probably throw a half pound. I mean, go heavy, right? If you're going to do it in the mash, I'd go heavy on it.
Double dry chocolate.
Double dry chocolate. Yeah.
Our next question comes from Adam in Australia.
Accent.
Forget my accent here.
Or just have Scott read it.
Yeah, why don't you have Scott read it? Scott, would you mind?
I mean, we got that Australian right here, right?
All right. Question from Adam from Australia.
Can you read it
Hi,
like
Adam.
Perkins? Read
if
it
you're
in
listening,
Perkins'
Adam,
voice.
I'm sorry, mate. I have a question on hop timing based on the XBMTS.
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for this.
Whatever that's all about, mate. You've run random semicolon. It seems like both.
That's a
hot
colon.
side. Huh? Oh, sorry, colon. Yeah. It seems like both hot side and dry hop timing appear to be pretty non-significant in terms of flavor and aroma effects. Question mark. I might be misremembering the results though. Full stop. Do you still practice? Oh, his practice is spelt wrong. Different kettle, flame out, or dry hop schedules.
That was Australian.
My noob reaction to the XBMTS is to maybe just go FWH for convenience on the hot side and dry hop with yeast pitch because it's convenient and mitigates oxygen exposure. Question mark.
I'm going to reread that to myself because I was.
Don't worry. The entire question to me. I have no idea.
It seems like he's wondering, like, does it matter when you put the hops in?
Yeah.
That's
it seems
summarize
like-
those two sentences into that one question. Does it matter when you put the hops in, mate?
Well, that's what he's saying. It's like he's saying hot side and dry hop and all the different times.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
So I guess the
How many
question is,
hops are you
do you
using,
still
Adam,
practice different kettle, flame out, or dry hop schedules?
yes.
Yeah, of course.
What are you? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, even though we've done some experiments that show that, you know, maybe a whirlpool versus everything at flame out doesn't seem to matter that much. We just did one that was like 60 minutes versus 30 for bittering charge, and I think that was significant. I can't remember, but I think hop timing, you know, clearly matters at some level. Whether or not that's super perceptible on a very, very hoppy IPA where we're doing a lot of late hopping, I don't know, but I am still doing 60, 30, 20, 10, 5, just mess it up.
so do I, and I do think that this whole like this idea that, you know, bitterness is at 60, flavors at 30, and then aromas at anything under 10. I do think that that's people aren't really paying much attention to that anymore, or using that to kind of you know, make their hop timing decisions. But at the same time, I still do that. I feel like, and this has not been tested, so it's a feeling on my part. But I feel like I do get more of a full hop character when I have hop additions that are at those multiple levels. I know for things like New England IPA, what a lot of people are doing, I think people are a lot of professional brewers are skipping the bittering addition altogether, right?
Yeah, completely.
And are you guys? Do you even worry about flavor additions, or you just expect to get all of that from the?
We pretty much just bank on massive flavor and aroma from the whirlpool.
Yeah, which we did do an experiment on this one. A whirlpool addition on the commercial scale is not the same as what homebrewers are doing, right? I mean,
Yeah, how long are you taking to knock out?
Right, we're dropping to the temperature that we want to dump the hops in within like 3 or 4 minutes, and we're using a pump to circulate everything, not a paddle. And
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got some advantages that kind of make it easier on us.
Yeah. So I do think people are minding. I'm still minding the time at which I make additions into the work during the kettle, but I'm doing it admittedly to some degree because it's tradition.
Yeah,
it's kind of what I do.
And kind of like to the last part of this question, I do think you can make a good beer if you just did a first wort hop and then a massive dry hop at yeast pitch. I think it might be different if you did some other additions, but I think you could definitely make a good beer.
Somebody recently used the term bitterness profile, and I kind of like that because I do feel like there are different aspects to bitterness. You know, you can have that upfront, sharp, kind of bite you in the tongue bitterness. You can have a lingering quality to it. To me, when you've got hops throughout the kettle, so I brew a lot of lager. That's not a beer that I'm going to toss a whole bunch of Tettninger in, you know, at flame out or whatever. I want that bitterness profile. I want to get, you know, so good question though. Next question comes from Arvin Lindmark from Sweden. He says, I make both beer and cider and frequent a few different forums on both subjects. When it comes to beer, it seems lactose is a rather common method to sweeten heavier styles like Imperial Stout or New England IPA nowadays, at least here in Sweden. However, when I've suggested this as a sweetening method to cider makers, I'm regarded as a madman and met with a bunch of counter arguments that I hardly ever see when lactose is used in beer, like lactose intolerance, increased risk of infection, etc. You know if there is any actual difference when it comes to the use of lactose in different beverages, or is it just this that some things have been accepted among brewers but not yet among cider makers? I should add that basically all cider makers I know, myself included, don't have a kegging setup but rely on bottle conditioning.
So, I mean, that's interesting. Wasn't lactose first added to beers to make them like a health drink back in England? thought that's what the case was.
Don't look at me. I mean, just because I sound like smart doesn't mean I know anything.
Yeah, you were there at one point, though, right? You got kicked out.
In England. Yes. I lived in England in the 18th century. Yeah.
I'm not saying you. I'm saying your lineage.
You too. I mean,
No.
Perkins
I'm from
is
Africa.
an English name, you loser.
Yeah, I know it is. Yeah.
The first thing I'd say, I don't know if lactose has really been accepted into beer. I think a lot of people are using it in beer, but there is both sides of the fence, I would say.
Yeah, but the Swedes are really like fancy about that sort of stuff. Like they're really worried about, like, they love organic beers. They are really worried about gluten intolerance, all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So probably it's a bigger thing for them up there.
I actually have talked to people who've used lactose to back sweeten their cider, and apparently it works. But I've never tasted one. But what I've heard is that if you drink a milk stout, there's a certain flavor quality to lactose. Same thing with milkshake IPAs. And do you use it in milkshake?
Yeah, just in our milkshake IPA.
Yeah, and to me, I don't know. I don't think I've tried that one, but to me, there's this kind of end of the, like, as you're swallowing and breathing out, that retronasal thing. There's this quality. It's a warming, sweet quality that I get when I have lactose. Kind of creamy.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense, right? But so I've heard that that's basically what comes through with cider as well. I don't see why you wouldn't use it if you're bottle conditioning, because it's not fermentable. So you can get away with back sweetening and not worrying about bottle bombs.
Boil up a little bit of water, add it, dissolve it,
Yeah.
add it to your fermenter before bottling. From a consumer protection side, do you label that then as having lactose?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You have to do that, don't you? Yeah.
Even though we don't package it and sell it, but we make it very clear up front, because the food allergies have gotten way more common.
Imagine that.
It's weird.
So weird, right?
Okay. From a cider making standpoint, my concern would be, like, you're now diluting the cider a little bit. So whenever I back sweeten, I know you have used like apple concentrate, but when we do once a year, we'll do the fresh pressing, and I know we have a million jokes on that, but when we do the fresh pressing, we will freeze concentrate, an extra gallon of the cider that we've done, and then as that thaws out, we'll let that run off and get kind of a sweeter, more concentrated cider, and we'll back sweeten with that, and then use potassium sorbate to kill off.
Yeah, that's what I do too.
That seems to be the common method when people come in our homebrew store. That seems to be what they do here in Yakima.
So that would be my only concern, is just dilution of flavor.
I'm shocked. Do you guys, I mean, with the apples that get grown here, I'm surprised there's not like a really huge cidery.
There is one. It's tied into the Cider Works.
So my colleague.
Yep, there you go. I was looking at you. Yep.
My colleague Rob used to run Titan Cider Works, and now he sells hops.
The production side, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they came out with their canning cider. I mean, they're the only cidery I know that actually grows their own cider apples.
Yeah, but the thing is, the problem here in Yakima is that, like, they don't grow cider apples. They grow, like,
sweet apples,
table
apples.
Yeah, for the most part. But these guys are, though. They do have.
I know. The Titan does now. Yeah. I lived in Germany and Hamburg, and so there's the largest apple growing region of Europe is next to Hamburg.
This is the same thing with wine, though. We have such great wineries that people are not making wine here. You know, everyone we don't sell wine kit. We sell nothing to do with winemaking.
You grow a lot of grapes, but you don't grow them for wine
exactly.
production.
And it's because you should. I mean, like, this is the best area to get the juice or grow the grapes. But
we just went on a deep Yakima dive. Oh no. Let's get back to the topic.
All right. Next question from Brett Davis. I'm currently fermenting a 1 gallon Saison recipe, and I'd like to condition it in my 128 ounce drink tank growler instead of bottling. Is the amount of sugar or honey the same as for bottling, or is there a different measurement for batch conditioning like this? Well, first off, I'm not 100% sure on that specific tank, but you should not carbonate in those stainless steel growler. They're not rated for PSI. I had a friend had one that just exploded.
How big is 128 ounces?
That's a gallon.
It's a gallon.
Yeah. Don't do that, mate. You're just making a bomb.
Yeah. Though these drink tanks, I think, are stainless steel, and I think it's screw on. These are the ones that have, like, the tap on the top, right?
Yeah, they have a tap on the front.
Oh, do they?
Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Very
I would just look up
susceptible to leaking.
Find out what they're rated to.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm the type of dude who would try
scientist, mate.
Yeah, I know people that have conditioned in growlers, and they've been okay.
I won't do growlers.
The idea is you're only bringing it up to a certain level of PSI. It's not like your burst conditioning it.
Yeah, I think this fear people have though is that if you fucked up, right? And you forgot, and you weren't to FG yet or something like that.
Yeah, or if you had an infection or something like that.
Yeah, so
I still wouldn't put on conditioner in a growler though.
No, I know.
I would not either do it.
Screw on lid. I'd be worried.
I would do it in stainless if I was going to.
Yeah.
Those stainless ones and they'll hold pressure too. Just not much, but they'll hold pressure.
Yeah.
You had a friend who had a stainless growler explode?
Well, like it bulged out.
Jesus, man.
So like it totally ruined it and couldn't use it for anything after that.
Yeah. Wow.
I would do it in a cheap one then.
To answer the question, you can actually. I don't know. I don't. I don't know if the amount, if the ratio is the same.
I think it is.
I think you can do it, right? But I remember years ago hearing from somebody that that smaller volumes of beer require less sugar, and from a ratio perspective, I would just go. BrewUnited.com has a great carbonation calculator. I'd go use something like that. You plug all your details in there.
Just use a calculator.
Daniel Ablenas from somewhere says, I'm always interested to see your impressions versus the experiment results. Usually I find your impressions confirm the results of the tasting panel. My question is, after tasting the beers yourself in an experiment, have you ever been surprised with the results from the tasting panel?
Yeah, this happens, sometimes. I think for the most part, our experiences line up pretty well with the tasters, but again, like we're tasting these beers throughout the entire process. Typically we have, countless runs, even like if they're not actual blind runs, but we have countless dry runs with these beers. So sometimes we can learn to pick up on a specific thing that maybe in a tasting panel they're not going to get right away because they're not specifically trained for that.
Yeah. I think this happens more with you than me, which could just speak to how your sensitivities, maybe a shitty palate, whatever. But the one time that I can recall where I was able to taste a difference in the beers and the tasting panel didn't. I mean, I can't sit and say that it wasn't because I wasn't biased. You know what I mean? I really don't know. And both beers tasted good. And when I was drinking them side by side, it's not like I noticed they were different. But it does happen. I mean, occasionally. Brian, has it happened to you or?
Yeah, it tends to happen when I do like a side by side. Or the best example is when Ray came up and visited, and it was an experiment that never actually got published because of some other things. But I did 2 batches of Pilsner or Czech Pils, and one of them, in a triangle, neither of us could get it, but we were definitely had a preference for one over the other. We drank the entire keg that weekend of the one, whereas the other one went almost untouched.
And do you think that was it because you like consciously knew that there was a difference there that you didn't like, or you were like subconsciously avoiding that one?
One tasted crisper to me, and we liked that.
That's weird as shit, dude.
It does seem weird but I mean, it's like I go grab a beer, give one to him. Which one do you think this is? I'll give you a beer. Which one do you think this is? And we would usually nail it.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. People always ask about, why'd you settle on the triangle test and all that? And I was thinking about how there's, the triangle test is looking at aroma, flavor, and mouthfeel, and those are the 3 things that we specify. I mean, it forces you to focus on those 3 things. What it misses is the total, right? The gestalt of the experience. And I'm not saying that invalidates what we've done. I don't think it does at all. But I wonder if there's not something in that gestalt, right? You're like, I don't know what it is, but it's something, even though I can't tell them apart.
Right.
It sounds almost, I
don't know. I mean, and then I've had situations where it's like, I'm looking for something because I know that this is what the difference is, or supposedly going to be. And occasionally I felt like I picked it up a little better, and I've hit triangles sometimes better, but it could be chance.
Yeah.
So more often than not, I'm just kind of, I've gotten to the point where I am used to the idea that, okay, people aren't gonna be able to tell the difference in this.
Yeah, same.
Because
it's
triangle
never
tests,
terribly surprising.
they're very difficult.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I think about all the time as well. But I still think the results if I'm able to tell a difference, or if I'm not, and the opposite is true for the tasting panel, it just gives me something to consider and to think about, whether that's bias or not. So, all right, let's fill up our beers, you guys. We're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, more Brü A. As every brewer knows, the best beer requires the best hops, which Yakima Valley Hops provides fresh from the source to brewers around the world, carrying everything from classics like Cascade to modern favorites like Galaxy and Mosaic, as well as other ingredients and gear. Yakima Valley Hops has it all. And don't forget to check out their new podcast, The Late Edition, where the YVH crew goes into depth on our favorite plant with industry experts. Head over to YakimaValleyHops.com now to see all they have to offer and subscribe to The Late Edition wherever it is you listen to podcasts. When dumping wort-soaked grain in leftover low-gravity wort while cleaning up after a brew day, did you ever wonder what your true efficiency would be if that wort made its way to the kettle instead? Using the brew bag, a fabric filter for all mash tuns and brewing methods, allows you to capture every last drop of wort. Not only does this increase kettle efficiency, it lowers your grain bill, which saves you money. Throwing wort in the trash is like dumping a 12-pack down the drain and just doesn't make sense. Use the brew bag and leave no wort behind. I've been using these filters for a long time and recommend them to everyone. I never have to worry about a stuck sparge and cleanup is fast and easy. Go grab yourself a brew bag fabric filter at brewinabag.com and be sure to use code TBP17 at checkout to get a discount on your order. Family-owned Atlantic Brew Supply is the largest homebrew shop in the Southeast. No gimmicks, no multinational corporate overlords, and no BS. They offer exclusive malts, yeast, and more from local artisans, as well as award-winning recipe kits. They also sell professional brewing gear and cask equipment from sister companies ABS Commercial and Cask Supply. Most ingredients are available by the ounce, plus Atlantic Brew Supply has an on-site calculator to help you craft your best brew. Orders are processed same day, and 2-day shipping is guaranteed for East Coast customers. Get 15% off your first order using promo code BREWPOD, that's BRUPOD at AtlanticBrewSupply.com. After a long brew day, the last thing I want to do is waste more time chilling wort. I've tried so many different options, and ultimately I settled on the super efficient immersion chillers made by Jaded Brewing. With the King Cobra and Hydra, I'm able to chill my entire batch of wort from boiling to just a few degrees above groundwater temperature in as little as 6 minutes. If an immersion chiller is right for your brewery, then do yourself a favor and check out all of the rad options Jaded Brewing has to offer at jadedbrewing.com, and be sure to let them know Brülosophy sent you. All right, we got a bunch more questions to get to, some really detailed ones, in fact, so we're going to jump right into this thing. This one comes from Garrett Smith. He says, I've entered competitions with beers, and common feedback is that they have a lingering bitterness. I've tried removing, quote, juicy style hops from the boil, leaving them as a Whirlpool edition at less than 80C, which is 176F, and using a clean bittering hop like Magnum, which improved but did not resolve the issue and resulted in a detrimental impact to aroma. I've tried different I've tried different water treatments, pressure transfer to kegs, avoiding oxidation, different Magnum hop weights at the beginning of the boil on batches to try to achieve equal bitterness calculated through Beersmith. These new fancy commercial NEIPA styles avoid this for the most part, so I must be missing a trick here. Latest single hopped Mandarina Bavaria Kolsch had a 5-minute edition with a Whirlpool edition, and it still has a slight lingering bitterness that stopped it from being a 40-pointer, which is annoying. What other processes can I take, or can I try to remove that lingering bitterness on the palate? What tips do you have to avoid this? Yeah, we're all looking at Nate. Go, dude.
Pointed out. First thing I was thinking, I was like, have you calibrated your temperature reading devices? We had a problem with that on our pilot system. Somebody bumped it and hand twisted it back, and I thought I was chilling down to like 175, and we definitely weren't. But I don't know. Reading that, I wouldn't avoid the juicy style hops.
No, that's the last thing I would do. Yeah, I know.
Magnum's known for being bitter. I mean, that's a killer bittering hop.
It's perfect bitterness. Yeah,
I use it in all my New England IPAs actually.
Really? So are you? So are you still hopping up front then? Are you doing like a 60-minute edition?
I do first wort hop with Magnum to, I suppose, a calculated 15 IBUs.
That's what I've done
in my mind, and I don't know why I started doing it. I kept lowering it down. I felt like 15 was the number that I wanted to be at, and I feel like it just has just a very nice little balanced bitterness that I enjoy. Yeah. And it's probably totally bogus, but it makes me feel good.
So, but Nate, what you're saying is it could be that you're isomerizing alpha acids still, as opposed to just
how long's Whirlpool time, how much hop contact are you getting, and for how long. I mean, I've read some things when looking at like Treehouse clones, they're dropping it down to like 132 degrees and whirlpooling for an hour. I mean, that's
That's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But they're getting
of
a
hop
lot. Yeah.
contact. So I'm just curious how long of a whirlpool.
Yeah. The two things that come to my mind, if it's not an isomerization issue, so if it's not a temperature issue, are water chemistry, even though he says...
Yeah, water chemistry.
I think Garrett said he messed around with water chemistry stuff. But the other thing is, and maybe Caleb, you can speak to this more than I can, but when I've used old hops, and I get this beta acid bitterness that is so incredibly painful to me. It's so gross. And for whatever reason, hops that are stored well, that are relatively fresh, even a year or two old, don't have that quality. It's not that painful bitterness. And the way he's describing this almost sounds like that. I wonder if those hops are being stored properly.
So there are two different ways that hops can impart bitterness in beer. You can isomerize the alpha acids, but you can also oxidize the beta acids. So oxidized beta acids, they contribute, it's something like 60% of the perceived bitterness that iso alpha acids do. But you're absolutely right. I think it was the Germans, they were messing around for a while with doing like high beta varieties and then letting them oxidize and then selling them as like a bittering agent. But the perceived bitterness from beta acids is also much different. There's a pleasantness factor. And even within like isomerized alpha acids, there is a noticeable difference. It was Shellhammer. He did some research on the different bittering hops, Warrior, Magnum, Northern Brewer, CTZ, things like that. And each of them did have a different like perceived length that they lingered on the palate. They measured like cleanness, sharpness, just overall pleasantness. So yeah, there is a difference in bittering hops. They're not all created equal.
And that oxidation of the beta acids, that poor storage can do that, right? And it'll kind of deteriorate the alpha acid bitter.
And I'll definitely confirm that. We recently kegged off one of our Northwest IPAs, and we had a bag of Amarillo that was marked dry hop only. And the farmer that gave it to us made it very clear they'd possibly been oxidized, but in the dry hop side, they'd be fine. Just don't put them in hot side. And we did not read that bag. And now it is just like goosebump, spine tingling bitterness that we've been sitting on.
You bought it direct from a farmer.
Yeah.
That's why you should always go through Hollingbury and Son. Hollingbury and Son.
Shameless pitch.
Wow.
So
we love Matt Hollingbury, so it's cool.
Yeah, see, definitely. Don't worry. He's my bro. Go through us. Don't buy direct. Those
we're
weird
on
guys.
Week 4 of sitting on these kegs and testing it every single week. And I just keep looking at the bag and the walk-in that's taunting us. Like, you did this. You did this
and
to us.
Do you get what I'm saying?
You did this with your direct purchase. Oh, no.
Wow. But my description of it is a painful bitterness. That right?
Yeah,
like it's so bad.
It's like an astringent. Like, it's rough.
Yeah. So.
And the hops were free.
That's what I would do.
Okay, well, that's a price you can't beat.
Yeah,
that is. Well,
but
when
the
it
malt
fucks up
wasn't
your beer,
free, right?
Yeah,
at
exactly.
the time.
That's what I would suggest is mind your hop storage and making sure that they're as fresh as possible. But and then for me, if it is a water chemistry issue, it may just be that you're really, really high in sulfate and don't know it. That to me, that can accentuate that odd sharpness and bitterness as well.
I agree, and sometimes I get an odd bitterness when yeast is in suspension, and it sounded like he was brewing a New England IPA, so that could be part of it too.
Yeah, sharp, that kind of sharp yeasty bitterness. So there you go. It's cool.
All right, next question is from Nick Jacobus. I was recently fighting an old immersion chiller that was leaking by moving it around the kettle a decent amount, which kicked up trub. I then took OG readings and my refractometer and noticed a decent amount of sediment on the lens. The OG was 4 points higher than expected after the wort was chilled. I was time crunching to get in the fermenter and didn't take another reading. I'm not worried about a few points, but was wondering how much sediment plays a role in gravity readings. I would assume more so in hydrometer readings, but was just curious.
So yeah, that's a good question. I know Ray, when he does hydrometer readings, he does it before letting the wort settle at all. And it looks nasty, and he's done comparisons and they're identical. So I don't know. When I use my refractometer, I try to get clear wort, onto the lens there, but I don't know if it
I mean, if you got sediment, your refractometer works based on refraction, so you have to get the light to pass through. And if you have sediment, the light's not going to pass through that particular sediment.
Right.
So unless the sediment is allowing the light to go through it, I wouldn't think that it's affecting it. It might make the reading dimmer if you have a ton of it.
Yeah.
But when you say 4 points higher than expected, I mean, I often have readings that are not what I expect sometimes. So I wouldn't let that be an indication of anything, but it is a good question. So that would be my sentiment on that.
I actually asked somebody, I think it was John Palmer. I might have asked him like what his thoughts were, because he's been around for a long time. I don't know if you guys know him. And yeah, I think the response was same thing as Ray's experience, that if you're using a hydrometer, the amount of gunk in there, unless it's actually causing like if you've got so much stuff in there that the bottom of your hydrometer is sitting on trube, of course it's going to ruin. That's the wrong reading. But apparently, you can get pretty murky wort and get a decent OG reading. So cool.
Our next question comes from Will Corey from Glasgow, Scotland. And I'm going to kind of summarize this because this is a long article here.
That's a long one.
But he says that he has some questions on maximizing hop aroma. I've already got my answer for him, but I'm going to go ahead anyways. I'm finally getting some good results from brewing hoppy beers. He's switched to kegs and resolved some oxidation issues. He entered an ESB and got third on it, in a dry hop ESB. He says he isn't getting the intensity of the hop aroma that he wants, especially in IPAs. He ferments in glass carboys with a blow-off, dry hops, loose pellets in the FV and the keg, and he has temp control. He racks closed transferred, doesn't think he has any more oxidation issues. The aroma coming out of the blow-off is what he wants. However, it's not what shows up in the final beer, even though he finds the final beer still to be tasty. He's wondering if he were to ferment under pressure and somehow the hop aromas would be trapped and the beers dissolve CO2 in headspace rather than going to the blow-off. Is this possible? Also, he believes that the brewers of juicy New England IPAs will have sophisticated filtration of hop matter, such as centrifuge systems. They must surely extract a lot more flavor out of the hops than he can. Often the hop sludge left behind after racking has great aroma, and I wish it was left in the beer. Is there a way I could replicate this squeezing out of the hop aroma and oils without a major filtration setup? I've read that hop teas can be effective. Any potential comparison of regular dry hops versus hop tea might be fun. Maybe, Nate, you want to tell us about your centrifuge or filtration system that you utilize?
So 0 filtration, 0 centrifuge. We let it all go.
Yeah.
The closest thing we have to a filter is like a stainless strainer, and we just kind of use that so we don't clog up like the chiller and stuff. But at that point,
filter is your liver.
Yeah, you could
my liver is my filter.
If you want to try and trap, you could try and spun at the end of fermentation. But as soon as I read that, my first thought was like, you should be using some more hops probably.
Yeah, more hops.
This is one of those questions like people's perception versus what really reality is. You don't. You pretty much have the same setup. These guys can, homebrewers can be making the same great quality beers as a commercial setting, for a lot of these breweries these days. So
yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Our commercial brew house is basically me just tripling the size of our little pilot system. We're manually moving hoses. We have pumps that we physically turn on and off, like 0 automation. We don't have any filters in there, no coffee filters anywhere. We have nothing. I always refer to us as the dirtbag brewer because we're just like, yeah, I'd put more hops in.
Don't say that about yourself. Come on.
The question did mention fermenting under pressure though, and that's highly suggested.
Yeah.
To ferment under pressure in order to retain.
And the idea that you're trapping
trapping
the aromas.
Yeah.
You're trapping like 5 psi. So
Yeah,
aromas are in that headspace.
Yeah.
You're still blowing stuff off.
Right. Yeah. You're not trapping a lot, given the volume of gas that's coming off during fermentation, I would think.
Yeah, we've fermented batches here in like a unit tank that we've gotten up to like 45 psi. So it does. You can get up there. You can set it to blow off, but yeah, if you just plug it up and let it go, it can get up to.
Yeah, I don't brew this style, so I can't. But I think fermentation under pressure, or doing the thing where you capture the CO2 and have all of that, CO2 hop aroma and then keg into that beer maybe, or if you could figure out some way to carbonate with that, I guess like you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, we'll like the last 2 days after we've dry hopped, we'll close everything up and let it build up its own head pressure of just those massive aromas and CO2. And then we'll use that CO2 to move it into our bright tank. So we're closed transfer, just using that own aromatics to push it into the next tank. And that seemed to make a huge difference on things.
Well, and just in those couple days, like how many PSI do you get up to?
We typically build up to about 4 or 5, which is what I want to transfer at anyway. So it's perfect.
Likewise,
we're not wasting CO2, and we're just kind of using the natural CO2, I guess, created in the fermentation.
Yeah. That's interesting avenue for experimentation, is to see what kind of impact, closed transfers with hoppy gas, if you will, what kind of impact that has. So, yeah. All right. Next question comes from, Philip Schuchard, a German living in Sao Paulo, Brazil right now. He says, as a German, I appreciate the use of an umlaut. You're welcome, dude. That was so cheesy and you stuck with it. I'm currently brewing on a Grainfather 220 volt and using a Fermentasaurus conical fermenter. However, I'd like to be able to ferment and cold crash and have closed transfers. I just don't feel great about pouring stuff and tipping buckets. What would you recommend as a next step up? I feel silly paying $1,600 for a conical fermenter and glycol chiller. Are there cheaper ways, especially for a glycol chiller? What would you recommend as a solid alternative to level up towards cold crashing and lagering? Either way, you guys are so much fun to listen to, and I truly appreciate the no bullshit, honest, no arrogance approach. Say hi to Jersey and Tim. Those guys set the bar high for ideal neighbors. They sure do.
So the cheapest and easiest way to do this is to ferment in a corny keg.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. All right, cool. So
the end. Okay,
the end.
Well, cool. Next question.
Fermentasaurus is a great name.
What's a Fermentasaurus?
I know. I want a Fermentasaurus.
That's what I used to ride to school.
Yeah. I think it is a closed. I think it's PET. But it is you can like do closed, low pressure fermentation, stuff like that. Yeah,
I would say put it in a fridge if you want to be able to control the temperature. I mean, fridges are pretty cheap.
Yeah, there are glycol builds out there. If you Google it, they don't sound terribly easy to do. You have to like get the compressor out of an old fridge, and then you have to get.
You can get a used fridge for free sometimes. Yeah. Maybe you can get your fermenter to fit in there. That's why I was asking how big it was.
Yeah, I don't know I don't even know what they are. Fermentasaurus, fun name. But if you're going glycol, you're dropping $1,000. I mean, for homebrew, but it's amazing, right? That's
it
what
is. Yeah.
Yeah. So
the Penguin one is a little bit cheaper than the SS one, but the SS one is so high quality.
Yeah.
We've got some half barrel SS tanks that have the coil in the lid, and then the 1 barrels have the coil through the side. And in a pinch to lager, I bought like a $20 like Rainbird that kicks on at certain temperatures, and then a pond pump, threw it in a cooler with just a big old bag of ice and a ton of water, and it ran for like 4 days and kept it right where I wanted it.
That's what he was doing at first, right?
$40 on Amazon, done.
Yeah. That cool.
What are those? There's also like this column thing that goes inside of a.
Oh, you're talking about the brew jacket.
Yeah. I don't know what it is.
I think that is the brew jacket.
It goes inside the cardboard. It's got a little box that sits on top. Yeah. They can lower you down. I think it's like 15 or 20 degrees.
Yeah, those work. One of my friends had one of those. They are pretty pricey.
But they're like $250 or something like that.
And it only works on carboys or something like that, or like
they have adapters for pretty much every style now.
Yeah.
It is slow. It's expensive. I don't love it, but it's tough to clean too.
Yeah. How's cleaning the glycol thing?
You just rinse off the coils.
That's it, huh?
Yeah.
That's the only.
Replace the glycol like once every year or two. Pretty simple.
I feel like that's where innovation needs to happen, right? For the homebrew world is the chilling aspect, and then also the centrifuges. If you can get like a modified miniature version of a centrifuge, I think that there's a lot of opportunity to make money, right? So I don't know. That seems like the two most expensive things in brewing, anyways, right?
Jeff's got business ideas now.
Yeah, nonstop. I guess that's what I would do too. I'd probably just go buy a chest freezer.
I would just do chest freezer with pinlock eggs.
Yeah,
if you're worried about expense.
Exactly. So.
All right. Next question is Jason Dean via email. I've noticed a shift in your brewlosophy, in quotes, over the last 6 to 12 months on the importance of limiting cold side oxidation. From the brew and lock, skipping cold crash, fermenting in the unitank, etc. I'm just curious what led to this shift. From what I recall, the experiments that seemed to show a discernible difference in regard to oxidation were primarily related to hazy IPA. From what you and others have discussed, it seems that style might have some other unique things going on like high levels of manganese that makes it more susceptible to oxidation. Were there other experiments that seemed to show cold side oxidation made a big impact on taste for other beer styles? Have you experienced some anecdotal evidence that led you to adopt more strict cold side practices for all types of beer you brew?
So I did the very first experiment that I did looking at cold side oxidation was a pale ale that I racked very rough into one keg, and then the other one I did the whole, like, I didn't purge the keg, but I racked it in through the liquid post, and then pushed the air out of the gas post, so it was closed, quote unquote. There, and those beers, even after time, were identical. That was the one where we actually came back and retested it like 6 weeks later or something like that. And they were identical. The argument behind that was, well, they were both equally oxidized. Right. Yeah. Right. Which makes sense, right? That was a poorly designed experiment. So it was because of that I went and did the one on the New England IPA. I've had so much anecdotal experience with oxidized beers that I don't know if it's from cold crashing, suckback that happens with cold crashing, or if it's purely just because of packaging process and all of that. But I'm absolutely convinced, and I don't really care what the style is these days. I just try to keep it to a minimum all the time. I whether it's a lager or an amber ale or whatever, a New England IPA, I just don't want that beer to touch oxygen if I can do it. And I'm lucky enough to have come up with a system that works incredibly well and is easier than what I was doing before. So.
Right. And the thing about beer is it's a food product, right? Like all food oxidizes, like leave an apple out, leave a banana out, anything left out touching oxygen is going to change. I think initially we were probably less concerned about it because we didn't really, I don't think, understand how small of levels of oxygen can really just detrimentally change a beer. And I think that's really, for me, that's why I'm going to these more strict practices and adding sulfite now to all my beers at the kegging process.
Yeah. And I do think there's, people out there who've heard of the low oxygen brewing kind of movement out there. I think one of the things that they've made all of us aware of is just the impact that oxygen can have. And their argument is that oxidation starts at milling the grain, and to keep, that's the whole idea is to keep oxygen as low as possible, eliminate it if you can at every point in the process. Perhaps it does have an impact, and maybe people can perceive. There are people out there who are sensitive enough to perceive it more than others. But for sure, on the cold side, there's no way I'm not going to be. Yeah. There's no way I'm going to be racking into a non-purged keg at this point.
I mean, the biggest one that was a shock for me and really kind of like set me forth on changing my ways was doing that sulfite at kegging versus not.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't make it come across in the pictures, but like those beers were different colors. It's just really hard to see, and they tasted different. And that's something simple that anybody can do. I mean, whether or not you're a bottler or a kegger, just split off one batch of beer into 2 fermenters and add some sulfite to one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to start doing that as well, just to kind of cover my ass type of thing. So, all right, Brian, we have one last question before we finish up this show.
Good thing it's a quick one here. Yeah. Chris Baker from Akron, Ohio says, as you frequently point out, you're cautious to draw conclusions based on your experiments. This is appropriate.
Thank you.
But which variable are you most confident does make an impact? Which variable are you most confident in saying makes no difference and can be ignored?
Oh, boy.
I mean,
can of worms right here.
I used to think it was water for sure, but cold side oxidation for me now.
That's me too. I would say cold side oxidation is one of the biggest things that the fact that I was able to brew beer and didn't quit because of shitty beer for so long before actually minding cold side oxidation, it just blows my mind. So that's for me for the first part of the question. Where are you at?
I would say water was the biggest eye-opener for me. Both, I mean, it kind of happened both at the same time as the experiments as well as brewing New England IPA, because before I started brewing that, I wasn't paying as close of attention to my water because our water back home is pretty neutral and nice. So we would just use it all the time, and I wasn't doing all the RO treatments and stuff like that. But when I started doing all the calcium chloride additions, I started paying attention to different water profiles and those sorts of things. So that's been the biggest difference for me. And I know you have all the jokes about my oxidation or lack thereof sometimes, but I can't say I do everything closed transfer now, but I can't say that I've noticed a huge difference in any of the beers that I've been brewing because of those practices.
Yeah, you are an anomaly though, dude.
Well-
And I don't know, and I'm not saying that to kiss your ass. I've had beers of yours that you have packaged in plastic bottles and put on an airplane, and they taste amazing, better than that would never happen.
They're brewed the hard way, Marshall.
That's got to be it. That's got to be the hard way you do it.
No, but I mean, if I was having,
Hey.
I think
Some great plastic bottled beers out of like Czech Republic.
No,
Is that right?
no. But yeah,
but
that's,
talking about hobo
you know, what I've observed though from seeing people posting pictures of purple beers and, you know, talking to other people in the brewing community is that, the cold side oxidation, especially with hoppier style beers, it does make a big change. So
second part of the question, things to be ignored. This is what he's really getting at.
I don't even know.
Doesn't matter.
Like, I don't really ignore anything because of an experiment. I don't think specifically. Maybe the biggest one is probably yeast pitch count. Like,
oh yeah, that's a good one. I don't think most of us don't even make starters anymore. We just pitch Imperial Yeast. Mine is definitely fermentation temp for lagers. And I knew I was going to get a fucking laugh from Brian.
Bingo
but
center score.
Yeah. I mean, I say it all the time, so I don't feel like I'm, hopefully I'm not triggering anyone, but yeah, I ferment all of my lagers at 66 degrees now with one of 3 strains, and they've won awards. They taste, to me, more lager-like than ones that I've cold aged or cold fermented at 50 or 10C.
And just to be clear, I have nothing against that.
I know, but you don't do it.
We talk about simplicity, and it's just as easy for me to go to a Keyser and say, I want this to ferment at 50, ... type it in, versus to do 66. And
me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I could do the same thing, except I can turn that beer around in 10 days as opposed to going through the whole, I'm going to let it lager for what is it? The original, like the kind of the OG lager schedule was
it's like 6 weeks or something like that.
Yeah, but in essence, but they would say, I think it was Narcissus who said something like
per 10 degrees Plato.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You do like a week. So it ended up being 6 to 8 weeks for a 1050 beer. And I just don't do that. I guess that's another one is I honestly do think that fining, especially with gelatin, is you are aging that beer in 3 days what you would get in 6 weeks, because that's what it tastes like to me. So those would be the two things that I don't lager
but to
anymore,
answer the question, it's like I wouldn't say I am most confident in saying that there's anything that makes no difference. I can't think of something that I'm confident in saying that. Yeah. Personally, if
you're doing it probably has some impact. I don't know. That's a tough one. Yeah, I don't think anything doesn't make a difference. But I think there are some things that you can do differently, and you won't notice you won't perceive it as being detrimental.
Yeah. Well, it'll just like people say like which one doesn't matter, or this doesn't matter. Like I guess that's the mentality I take. It's like I can't think of something where it's like, oh, this doesn't matter.
Yeah, we don't say that, but people think we say that.
That's kind of that's what's tossed back when something comes back as not being significant.
Yeah.
The mash pH ones were pretty surprising to me.
Yeah, that's true. I agree. I don't even bother to measure mash pH anymore.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Partially because I've brewed those beers a gazillion times and know that I know my water,
The ones that are most surprising to me are the ones where objectively they're different, but when tasters come back with something totally different, like something that's a % off on alcohol or something where it's like 10 or 15 points different and people can't tell the difference. That's the ones that are the most eye-opening. I mean, there is a difference there, but the fact that it's not perceptible to average Joe tasters, or a combination of average Joes and experienced, whatever you want to call it, that's what's most eye-opening to me, are these where it's like I can measure it and see there's a pretty big difference here, but if I serve it to you and you're like, oh, I don't know.
There's nothing that I think exemplifies that more than the mash temp experiments that we've done. Multiple times we've been able to show that long chain dextrins aren't sweet. They aren't perceptibly sweet. Yes.
Well, like an overnight mash, same thing too.
Same
it's
thing.
Like, where you have these beers that are, 10 points apart and people just can't seem to tell a difference.
Like I feel like there was a bit of on a logical level, we know that it's sugars. And since we all perceive table sugar as sweet, that if you are higher finishing specific gravity, then it's going to taste sweeter. I don't think that is where, now maybe the slight change in viscosity, which maybe you don't taste, you perceive it, maybe that holds on to sweeter compounds in hops or whatever more. But I have never made my idea for making the best session beers is just to mash at 164, because you're not going to get sweet. What you're going to get a higher finishing gravity, which if you start with a low enough OG, right? So now all you're doing is squeezing that ABV range into something a little bit smaller. And I've not the times that I haven't screwed up a batch, I've not tasted those beers with higher FGs as being sweeter in any way whatsoever.
And you end up with less calories too, right?
No, same.
It's same calories if you do it that way. Yeah. Same calories as it would be for OG.
It's more carbs.
It's more carbs.
More carbs, that's right.
Yeah.
Same calories, more carbs.
Yeah. This is not a diet show, though.
Obviously, looking around the room here.
Well, thank you guys for joining us. That was the last question.
Hold on. I'm not that fat.
Wake some of you up. Wake some of you up.
I do appreciate.
I'm 3 weeks into harvest, mate. Give me a break.
I do appreciate all of you guys coming on and sharing your opinions and perspectives. That was a lot of questions. Let's continue this drinking thing off the air. Do you guys have any finishing words, final words about harvest or anything else?
I mean, this is an incredible event. I think everybody who is in the homebrew community and likes going to events and hanging out with cool people, I think should hit this up.
Oh, this is the place to be. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and we've got some ideas.
We get some ideas. Hopefully we can capitalize on that soon. Oh yeah, for next harvest.
Yeah, good word to use, Perkins. Capitalize. I would just say hi. Don't worry about capitalizing on it. Just come here and hang out and be with us, and maybe buy some hops from Hollingberry and Son, not from the Yakima Valley Haas. From Hollingberry and Son.
You son of I think there's a. I mean, it's one thing if you know people that are from here, and you're brewers, and you kind of have the connections already made, and you can get kind of shown as a tour guide, shown around. So I think we're going to try to replicate that system, that kind of experience, in the future for everyone. So I think that's kind of where we're going with that.
Yeah, and if it's okay to talk about it, you guys did just strategically partner with the biggest.
Second biggest, right?
No, globally.
Oh, yeah.
The biggest globally, Barth Haas Group. So Johnny Haas is their U.S. Division, Hop Products Australia. So they own all of the Australian hops. Is their
claim to fame.
Galaxy and stuff like that. Yeah. They also have facilities in Hong Kong. Barth is their German version, German office, and then also Simply Hops in the UK. Can you remember? I don't know what's going on in the South America aspect to it, but
I don't know what's happening.
I don't think they have. I think they have salespeople there, but what this provides is better access to high quality hops that they've always had for bigger breweries, and they really are adamant about getting their products to the homebrewers and the craft beer market. They see a lot of value specifically in homebrewers because they're the ones innovating with these newer hops and experimental hops, which is another reason I think the Brülosophy guys are able to come in on this this opportunity to for us to be a liaison between the two organizations.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a feeling that this is going to open up a lot of rad opportunities for homebrewers out there who, if you're not already buying your hops at Yakima Valley Hops and you're a homebrewer, go there now and start buying your hops from Yakima Valley Hops. I don't know where else you would be getting them, to be honest.
What are you even doing?
I know, exactly. Yeah. And this is going to open up so much more opportunity, not only for homebrewers and us to be able to offer cool things to the people who are listening, the people who already shop at Yakima Valley Hops. So,
but I can speak from it firsthand. It's definitely been awesome from the moment the partnership has happened. We've had access to things I never thought I'd get my hands on, and so now we're brewing one of the best fresh hop beers I've ever had.
They're like a big battleship, and it kind of just takes a little bit for them to maneuver. Where we're like a speedboat, right? Like we can maneuver very quickly. So it's true. So we can actually
just think about the Titanic.
Well, you have these. Oh, the Titanic.
Oh, sorry, no, bad comparison. Okay, battleship. You're right. The Bismarck.
Yeah, the Bismarck. There we go. The Zeppelin. No, I think this. What this is going to provide is these guys have been around for 225 years. They have a very substantial and established research and development department. Also, they have all these new advanced products that they've not been able to scale down for the smaller craft and homebrewer. So we're going to be coming in and figuring those things out and then getting them to the marketplace. I'm going to give a plug here. Incognito is one of those advanced products that we're really going to be focusing in on the next few months, and will be available for homebrewers. It's a flowable extract that's basically keeps a lot of the terpenes. We're selling the hop shots right now, which are CO2 extract in syringes, and it'll be in the same kind of format. Yeah. But this will be more of a concentrate, for even on the aroma side. It's not just for the bittering, hot, warm side.
Yeah,
so.
We were talking about it earlier. I don't know if it was this episode or a previous one. The completely no vegetal hop matter beers that we had at Haas. it's crazy how hoppy they are.
Yeah. They were amazing beers.
Yeah.
They're constantly innovating. So I mean, that's just one angle of it. But this partnership opportunity really is going to translate to the homebrew market big time, and they actually do really consider and think this is a very important marketplace, especially with the growing craft division. Again, homebrewers have time and they have money, and they generally are speaking. Yeah, as a hobby. I mean, if you're a commercial brewer,
a cheap hobby. Yeah.
If you're a commercial brewer, you're fixated on like doing production schedules, and you have all the you might not have the time or the resources to experiment with a lot of things, and so there is a lot of innovation that's coming out of home brewing, and I think the whole entire hop industry and brewing industry in general are paying attention. So thanks to the likes of Brülosophy. So
I appreciate that, and thank you guys so much for all of you again for coming on, answering questions, hanging out with us, and Nathan for bringing beer. You guys are kicking ass.
Cheers, guys. So good.
Yeah, just if you ever have the opportunity to head over to Yakima, regardless of what season it is, you got to go to Wandering Hop. You got to come by the hop shop, Yakima Valley Hop Shop. Of course, awesome supporters of us. We love them, just like we do, all the other folks here in Yakima who've treated us so well. So it's always a good time here at Hop Harvest. If you have any questions you'd like us to answer on an upcoming Brü A, you can email them to either feedback@brülosophy.com. Just remember to indicate the question is for Brü A in the subject line. Otherwise, it might get skipped over. And as always, don't forget to head over to brülosophy.com to read about all the experimental stuff we're up to. The Brülosophy Podcast is made possible by the generous support of our sponsors as well as all of our rad listeners. We seriously could not do this without you. Cheers to everyone who has subscribed and left a review of our show. It makes a huge difference. If you haven't yet, please consider doing so. Head over to brülosophy.com/support to view a list of ways you can easily help us to continue producing this podcast. If you want a reward for your support, visit patreon.com/brülosophy. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Brülosophy Podcast. Until then, think beer.
Start off the morning with some hot tea, lemon and honey, cause it soothes my throat. Put some herb in the bowl, yeah, it's homegrown. Ain't gotta go through the middleman, no